Actually, I'm gonna grab water.
We're waiting for you.
So, like, do a podcast from your phone. No, phone podcasts sound like garbage. All I need to do a thing on my phone is be on we are watching it. Yeah. I think there is a room for like audio things, but it's like that would be a Twitter own thing, or like make it like a personal thing like Snapchat or something like that, where it's like you're super micro community.
I gotta see where I'm supposed to be after this. Okay, after this one I have to go to the Westin.
Yeah. And they
know
don't
the Westin.
know how to like get their own like storage space.
I got 30 minutes to go there. I know. Which sucks because I want to get a picture of Jimmy. Huh? Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He's a hilarious podcaster. You should check out the show Night Attack.
Man, everybody wants to monetize his podcast.
It's funny.
Oh, really?
Charles, it doesn't matter how much you touch that thing, you're not going to make us look better.
I always look good, baby. What's the problem about it? This is full of
Hey, Charles, are you going to use the box or?
Oh, yeah, no, here's the box.
Twitch? Podcast. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You can make it like podcasting and blank and blank or something.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
could.
Like, yeah.
Well, I think that's what we did last year. We said like podcasting and digital media.
Sorry, Brian, we didn't get the full check.
Digital media.
This one has 10 minutes left on it. It's set B. This one, this has a little less than an hour on it. That's why I just pulled out the end. It's like we all bowed our heads to pray, and I don't understand what's going on. I'm like, why? Oh my goodness.
Just watching you.
Felt like I was at home again. It was so quiet.
So this is how you monetize. You make sure your equipment can run before you get started.
How is it so hot in here and it's like sub-zero in the
I
next
don't know.
You're
the
asking
magic
the
of the
question
Hilton.
we've been asking for the last 4 days.
Because like it is freezing in there.
Yeah.
And how is it that they haven't been playing Melly on every break? I mean, I feel like they're missing an opportunity.
That's the far more important question.
Good
Yeah, we're
gracious. Oh wait, can I say the A word?
Yeah, sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Woohoo!
Everybody's here for the monetization in digital media. We're about at capacity. Does anybody have seats open next to them? We got one. We got maybe one, two.
We got some singles.
We got two over there.
Scoot on in.
And that's going to be, yep, Mike, you have to sit over there. Thank you, sir.
We only have aisle
So we
seats
actually made
remaining.
it capacity room here. I am Charles McFall, run the digital media track here. Thank you for coming out today. Everybody having a good time at Dragon Con? Yeah, Dragon Con gets a check. I don't get a clap. You get out of my panel. Get out. It's all right. Let me tell you about, first, our wonderful sponsors. Blueberry and Libsyn have come through this year and made sure we have some awesome equipment and everything's going well, so we very much thank them. Information is on the back tables for all the hosting and different things they do. Our charity this year for Dragon Con is American Heart Association. They will match up to $100,000 for every dollar you donate. They will match that up to $100,000. If you donate $100,000, you just knock it out of the park. So that'd be awesome. You can do that. We are digital, so we do not have a can to pass around. Right, it's digital media track. We've got the text that you can send AHA 2019 to 44321. That's the number. It's 44321. AHA 2019 is how you can do that. Also, as we go through, don't wait till the end. As we go through, go ahead and pull up the app, rate as we go. And if you do rate it, whatever star rating you give, take an extra minute. Put in a sentence about why you do or don't like what's going on or what maybe should have been different. We do look at that, and that matters. I mean, I see, and like I said, I'm the director of the oh, hey, Izzie.
Hi.
Here you go. We haven't introduced everybody here. You're doing good. Right? Yeah, that happens. It's Saturday at Dragon Con. That happens. So, 5 stars is great. 1 star is bad. But if I can't get a real idea of what would be changed, I can't help change it. So please take an extra minute to do that. And we're going to go down the line as you get your breath. I'm going to start down here and come over to you, okay? Awesome. From Night Attack and Diamond Club and C-SPAN, if they ever get fortunate enough to have them on there, it is Justin Robert Young.
Yeah, Representative Justin Robert Young.
You know, it tickles me pink.
Dragon Con.
You went, for BuzzFeed, you went to one of the conventions, right? As
did.
Pikachu to
Both
do
of them.
Charizard. You went to the convention to do Charizard.
I
and
went
interviews.
with the Bedrock Journalistic Institution BitTorrent News.
That's what it was, BitTorrent.
Yeah, no,
Now
they're
that's
not
old
just for
school.
stealing television anymore. For one glorious moment in 2016, they also were a news network, and I was hired to go bother people as Charmander on the floor of the Republican National Convention.
That was awesome.
So, just so you know,
I bet you're
I paid
spitting fire.
$80,000 to get a journalism degree.
All right, well, right next to you, Rob Greenlee.
Hello.
What?
It's great to be here.
And I'll let you go ahead and tell why you're sitting at the table, my friend.
Why am I sitting at the table? That's because maybe I've been podcasting for 15 years
15 years.
and been making some money over those years too, somewhat with my podcast and helping a lot of other people make money with their podcasts. So that's why I'm here. I work for Lipson, but mainly I'm a podcaster. I do a show called the New Media Show with Todd Cochran from Blueberry. So we're a tag team at this event to support this track and are trying to support Dragon Con and bring podcasting to everybody's attention and try and share some knowledge.
And he's not telling the full story. I mean, yeah, 15 years, but in the early days of podcasting, Xbox, Microsoft, they got into the game. Everybody heard of Zune? Everybody heard of Zune?
Sure.
Yeah, the way you got listed
Wait,
with
was
them at
anybody
all-
squirting? Who was squirting?
We were
You
squirting all over the place.
squirting
Justin.
songs and podcasts to each other. What a normal concept.
So you would actually have to email Rob directly to get listed in those directories. And
Yeah, there's
so-
a whole story to that, but we don't have time.
Sure,
but,
sure.
But yeah, the Zune was an early portable media player trying to compete with the iPod. So it was a fun time building that, but it's dead, gone.
Good job
history.
with that.
I had a Zune. I loved it. It was great.
I mean, now it's like retro tech. Like
Yeah.
for
It's
real,
cool
like
stuff, man.
At the time, if somebody gave me a Zune, I'd throw it away. But now I would pay upwards of $400 for one.
It's going to be it's
Star-Lord
definitely
has
a
it.
collector. It's a collector, no
Yeah.
question.
And
Yeah, I have one in my bag.
Brown only. Brown only.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what
I have one in my
had.
bag that's got a tombstone on it. It's engraved on the back, but it was one of the
Nice.
last ones made. But yeah.
The man who I know very well for building a community and being awesome from the Trivial Hall of Fame podcast, Trivial Warfare, Jonathan Oakes.
Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am good. I get to call him short, and he loves it. He's like an inch shorter than I am.
So I'm 6'5", and I'm the third tallest person on this panel.
Right, and I'm the second. I have to
hell?
look up to Rob. It's so
What
weird.
the hell? Yeah, so I do Trivial Warfare. I do Trivial Warfare Blitz. I also do a show called Foreplay. These are all game shows. We have another one coming out soon called Things That Are Blank. And essentially, we have created game shows on podcasts, and we have patrons who pay to listen to the shows and to come on the shows and have a great time with it.
And then one of my newest friends in the world, Bill from Run Jump Stomp. You have got quite the thing going on with Anchor and with your community, and you've been doing this for a hot minute as well.
About 3 years now. I've got Nintendo Switchcraft is my bigger show, and then I just started a new show called Stadia Cast. It's about Google Stadia, and that's been an absolute blast doing podcasts for a while.
Yes, I'm sure it has. Sorry, I was looking at the back, seeing if I needed to help somebody. I heard you stop. It's one of those cold throws like, oh, my turn now. I got to talk again.
My bad.
Thank you. No, it's fine. You're good. And we're digital friends. We have yet to, this is, hi, we've met face to face for the first time. Izzie Colpitts here. And why are you at the table, Izzie?
So I am not a podcaster. I actually am from Toronto, so I feel like I'm going to be the token Canadian. I can talk a bit about arts funding. This is something we have up in Canada.
Oh, that's different and new.
And then apologize for it, which I think is very characteristic. But in Toronto, I run an organization called Dames Making Games. So I myself am a software and electronic artist. I do a lot of like wearables work, but I do a lot of community organizing, supporting other artists and digital media makers, getting filmmakers to make interactive media for the first time. And then we are part of something called the Toronto Media Arts Center. which is a number of collective organizations similar to ours working across various medias. We have film collectives, we have distribution centers, we have animation members, that kind of stuff. And we kind of got all together to share a space. And so we actually have our own space where we all live under the same roof, have shared gallery spaces. If you're ever in Toronto, come and check us out, because at any given time we'll have like one cool event going on to like 7 in one building.
That is awesome, and that is why you're here. Because not everybody, we get locked into where we are, right? We think about our audience is right here, but really everything we do in digital media is global. Everything we do touches everywhere, and this is. I mean, I don't know how much. Well, that's first question. From the U.S. or anywhere outside of Toronto or Canada, can anybody possibly get into these programs or get kind of funding that way?
So, I mean, I think that DMG in particular, we're very local focused because we have an ideology that we know our community. We want to be very members focused and members run, and we know what our community needs, and we can find that out. That being said, we have a couple resources. So we have the community development kit. So if anyone wants to start something like DMG locally on the internet as a part of a larger organization, we kind of do work there. We have recently started streaming a lot of our workshops, so we're hoping to get more international members content that way. But we also have a Vimeo channel, so if you're a member, you do have access to those like kind of historic archives of our work. And so there are things, we are very local, but there are things globally.
Nice. The biggest thing I heard was you have kits that if people wanted to start things similar, that's to set up. And if somebody were maybe on this panel that likes to start things like that, where you put together communities that fund, might be Rob Greenlee. Is that something that piqued your interest, getting a kit that helps bring in outside funding for creative media?
Well, I think bringing in, like, so you're talking about like investors or grants, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, so we have like various resources for people who would want to start their own community. So these are things like base code of conducts, how to run a game jam, how to like facilitate workshops.
So it's really how to build communities.
Yeah. And then we do like also in there would be like grants that you could possibly get a hold of, but with the understanding that does vary quite a bit, country to country, or even in Canada, province to province.
You know, I don't know that any of us here at the tables have thought about arts funding for what we do, but
no,
but it sounds wonderful.
That sounds great.
I think it's being done.
Who wants to move to Canada?
Though I think it's being done for new shows for public radio in the U.S. though. I mean, grants funding for new projects in the public radio space is certainly something that's been around for a very long time, actually.
Are you now I'm asking questions.
Go for it.
Are you guys doing any change in that? Because I know that recently, a couple years ago, I was part of a conference from like a games and interactive media perspective that was about community radio, because that funding was still going to community radio, and they wanted it to be more broad in their digital media. Are you guys rethinking any of that to...
Nobody thinks about that in America at all. Like, honestly, grant writing is a very challenging thing. I've known a lot of people in the nonprofit world where that is their lifeblood. But in America, the culture around that is so process heavy and red tape heavy, at least from our perspective. I'm sure from the Canadian perspective, it's like, oh no, like this is just what you do. You submit for a thing and then you get a thing.
It's not a common thing in the U.S. to get funding that way. I think it's very specific, like I said, to public radio. And public type of projects. PBS, those kind of things is where you see that.
Feels like something you'd see in a book by Matthew Lasco. The guy with all the question marks on his suit. Get your money.
Know?
Right.
You're going to get free money.
That's right.
If you whisper into a microphone and have a room mic going behind you, you can get up to $100,000.
I think I've seen some TV commercials promoting that. Right.
All right. Well, I know the two big, and we're really about to go to audience questions. I'm sure you all have come with tons of questions. So real quick before I ask my next one, and then we're going to do it. So what you know. This is called a catch box. It is very, very soft. Izzie, hit me with the catch box. It's fine. Hit me. See? It's a little like, I get hit with the pillow. It's a little shocking if you're not paying attention, but it doesn't hurt. But it is an active microphone. We throw it, you catch it, you talk into it, and then you chest pass it back. If you do it by accident and hit somebody, I'm telling the person who gets hit, you get a free shot at me. I apologize you got hit from behind, but it doesn't hurt. It's fine. So we're going to be throwing that out. But the two big ones I think that are going to come up here easily, and we can absolutely answer specific questions, is Patreon and Twitch, right? Those are the two easiest ways to get money. Who here at the table is doing Patreon? All right, me too. So, Bill, why'd you get into Patreon? Actually, are you doing Twitch at all, Jonathan? Nope. I'm going to let you talk about Twitch if that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan, why'd you get into Patreon?
So we started in Patreon after about a year. One of our listeners said, hey, listen, I want to buy you and the crew lunch. How can I send you money? And it's like, I don't know. I guess I could give him my PayPal or something. And that moment kind of told me, you know what? It's time to put something in place to use as a funnel for people who want to donate. And then from there, it was a matter of, okay, identifying what do they really want from us. And I'll tell you right now, without going into a diatribe, they don't want swag, they don't want hats, they don't want something that they should be buying. They want an experience of some sort. For us, as a game show, they want to play the show, they want to play the game. Later on in life, I made changes, not actually less than a year ago, to where now if they want to hear all the shows, they have to be patrons. And so finding what it is that they want from you, understanding that, and putting your rewards around that to actually drive the behavior that you want is the way that Patreon can truly work in terms of getting money from the audience that you're supporting. Now, there's a caveat, and I won't ramble. You can't suck. All right, now I know this makes me the asshole, but there are a lot of people whose babies are ugly. And if you have an ugly baby and you've been asking, no, not a real baby, yes, your show.
Your show.
If you have an ugly baby, God bless you. You're an awesome human. No, seriously.
But you're probably ugly.
If you've been doing everything right from a marketing perspective, and you've been asking for money, and you've been putting things together that motivate people to give you money, and they're just not doing it, and you've been doing that for a year, now not a month, not a week, a year. You've been doing that for a year and a half, 2 years, and nobody wants to give you money, then either you're really bad at marketing, and you need to look at improving that, or your show just might not be the quality of show that people want to support, and you need to look at that. But you have to have something that people want to support. It has to be worth supporting, and then it's a game of how do I motivate them to want to support me.
Also, it's the second one. Spoiler alert. Your show's not good enough. And that's the lesson of podcasting.
People that love the shows want to support the host. It's really as simple as that. Shows that have built relationships with their audiences want to support the show. So it's a very simple thing. Being personable, being connected, being involved with your community is one of the big reasons why that community supports you. So I think that's the power of it. But certainly there's more ways to make money than just on Patreon. So, if you look at the whole podcasting side of the fence, there's advertising, there's just putting a PayPal link on your website is really all you need. You don't have to have Patreon to make a donation model work if that's what you want to do. Plus, you can build a career, based on your show. I mean, it depends on what your passions are, I think, is the key.
The real benefit of Patreon is it takes a lot of work out of your hands. Yeah. There's a lot of things. In fact, they were a couple of changes at Patreon a year and a half ago I really didn't like.
But they take a cut of everything that you do,
exactly.
too.
So you're paying them.
Keep that in mind.
You're paying them for this service. Right. They did a few things I really didn't like, and I researched the market on what other tools I could use to give me something similar to bring income in, but still manage my community, make sure I have access to all the different things that I need access to. I couldn't find one that was good enough to switch, even though I was motivated to switch, and so I stayed. And luckily, they've changed back and rolled back some of those policies.
And by the way, you should have a lot. But the wisest thing I ever heard in new media was a friend of mine who said, find every avenue that somebody wants to give you money in and do all of them. Yeah. Whatever anybody wants to do to give you money, like there's no value in this world, right? Maybe back in the day when messages were more rare, that you had to focus on like, oh no, only come to this thing and do this thing. Do all of them at all times, because guess what? Most people will ignore most of them. Yeah. In fact, like everyone on this panel that's making money in media, the majority of our audience is ignoring the majority of what we're putting out there, and yet we're making money because like the things that do work will connect with those people. The reason why you pay Patreon is not because Patreon is an exceptional service. It's a website built by a musician, which will tell you everything you need to know about it. It's because they had a brand. They were there at the right moment when
people were looking for that.
People were looking for it.
Right.
It caught at that moment, and so now it is that thing. Patreon is just it says we're not going to skim your credit card. We're arts funding. All the little elements of it like matter, and that's why Patreon matters, because no matter what, there are a few now. Red Circle's one of them. Himalayas, another one.
Glow is also out there doing some stuff. With
Mira, that's a new one.
Glow is.
And by the way, I got accounts on all of them. Because guess what? Eventually, somebody might want to give me money, and I'll be very excited.
It's easier to get them to give you money where they are than it is to get them to go to the place where you want them to go.
Yeah.
To follow up on both what Jerry was saying and what we were talking about with Patreon making changes, there's another reason why you want to be in as many places as you can. And that's because sometimes somebody's going to make a change, and it's going to be a change that's out of your control, and it's going to tick people off. It's going to tick a lot of people off, and they're going to say, look, I want to support your show, but I am not going to do it through Patreon or through whatever other thing, because they're mad at this company for something that they did, and it has nothing to do with you. And now suddenly you're losing money. You're like, some of your income is now disappearing through something that you had nothing to do with, and that can be a very frustrating thing.
Now tell us a little bit about why you're on Twitch and how you get paid on Twitch.
Well, on Twitch, getting affiliate status on Twitch is very, very easy. It's an incredibly low barrier to entry. So that means that you can easily find a way for your audience to support you, and they can actually do it for free, because I'm just curious, raise your hand in the audience, how many people here have Amazon Prime? Yeah, every single person in here who has Amazon Prime also has something called Twitch Prime. And if you have Twitch Prime, then you can subscribe to a streamer for free.
Let's say, for example, twitch.tv/Justin R. Young. You can
stepped
literally
on what I
go
was
on
gonna
there
say.
right now and just give free money to twitch.tv/Justin R. Young.
God, I hate you.
That's called self-promotion. But you
What
know
a
what?
random
You know what?
example.
That's the other biggest thing is, wouldn't everybody here, wouldn't you all agree that the number one hindrance to making money is not necessarily how bad your show is, but it's the fact that you don't think you deserve it? I have talked, man.
Not
Nobody
anymore.
backed me up. I'm going to go with it.
Not anymore, dude. It used to be.
Right.
It used to. That's why
Well, no, I
you
think
wait
there's a lot of
longer,
people
but
still.
eventually you have to start loving yourself. Eventually, you have worked your ass off for long enough and been complimented and told good things enough times to where you actually believe that you're doing a good job and you're worth somebody supporting it. And when you get there, you're now free to really go after it.
I think you're the exception to the rule.
That's some like we're over the line stuff though, because I'm with you. Like my initial response is exactly like yours. It's like, either, hey, if you don't want free money, then don't take it, I guess. Like, I would like free money, or free, quote unquote, because I'm doing a lot of work for it.
It's also smart to sometimes not start right away with a monetization model.
Right.
Yes, without a doubt.
I think the big thing you want to do is build an audience around your program, build a fan base, and then start monetizing. I think that's the smarter way to launch one of these things.
Jonathan, would you remind me, and I deal with so many people over so many years, I forget, but you and I have had a lot of conversations. Did I push you to get on Patreon, or was that somebody else I was pushing?
No, it's somebody else.
That was somebody else, because you're already there. But we do a lot of work
I was
together.
going at this for a year, maybe 15 months
before we
I got
met.
on Patreon. Before I got on Patreon.
Before you got on Patreon. Yeah, no, do the work. But I have so many conversations with podcasters, and I'm going to pretend it's Bill, but it's obviously not. But they're like, Bill, you're doing phenomenal work. Actually, it's one of the questions I did ask. He was like, are you getting paid? Because you should be. And he was like, no, yeah, I've got Anchor, I've got Twitch. But so many creators like you sitting out here in the audience go, but nobody wants to pay me. How do you know if you haven't put up here's a tip jar, how about you throw $1 in? And I even have still done it to the point where I host karaoke on Friday nights typically, and I go out as just a fun thing. And it took me a year at being at this one bar of this guy coming up to me putting money in my hand because I felt like I was going to take away from the waitresses or take away from the bartender. And that's not the case. And I finally started putting out a tip jar. Guess what? I started taking home tips without even. I never asked for it. I never say put money in I just leave it there. That's all I do. And they started doing it. And Izzie, it brings me to you because we're going to get to your software thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
But with what you do in Canada, how much money do you see left on the table where people just aren't putting in for it?
So much, especially when there's like new game makers in particular, because a lot of our funding is written, if you look at like media arts grants, whether it's arts funding or like funding for businesses, they actually look for like film, interactive media, games, and there's just like people in games just aren't applying for it. And so it's like, go and look if there is funding, even like locally, just go and look and you might get $1,000, before you think you can set up a Patreon or get money. It's like a lot of them are for people starting up, at least in Canada. Again, I'm so sorry.
I mean, that does exist in the U.S.
But people, people, this is why these exist, is to help people get started, get over that first hump of and organizations that I run, that's why we want new people coming in. That's why we want to support people finding these things, give people these tips. There are massive communities of these people who just want to help you start this stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. We're going to go to the catch box, which is this right here. Who's got a question? Really?
Oh, come on.
I got one right there. Yes.
Thank you.
To be fair.
I thought we were done. I was about to go get a drink.
I know.
When you make a face like that, I'm not going to throw it at you. It's okay. I'll walk it. But she's like, I want to ask a question, but don't hit me with the microphone. That's fair. That is fair. Here it goes.
It was a lot worse when he was throwing the real microphones at people. That shit hurt.
I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I don't type so quickly, and I'm trying to take notes. What were I heard Himalaya and Red Glow mentioned, and there were a few others in there that I missed the names.
No. I mean, number one, if you're looking to monetize a podcast, Patreon is the Cadillac right now, right? And again, you're buying into the brand more than you're buying into anything. Like it or not,
that's special about it, right?
Yeah. Like it or not, there's still an element of the internet where people who are not here and a very swelter hot basement in Atlanta that are nervous about where they're going to put their credit card online, right? Yeah. So a brand matters in a big way because it's like, okay, they haven't been outed as some gigantic thing. A bunch of other gigantic podcasts are on it. I now feel safe supporting a smaller one. Yeah. So Patreon matters, but there's a couple other startups, Red Circle. Yeah. And Himalaya are two other ones, but I mean, God knows if they'll even been around in a year.
I do want to point out really quickly, because it sounds like we're bashing Patreon a little bit. They do have some things that the others don't. The ability to actually publish your content from Patreon is a big deal for me. So I put out every other week a show that only my patrons can listen to. And they have an RSS feed that is generated by Patreon, and that RSS is plugged into your podcatcher, and so it's just like getting a podcast, except it's the one that you get because you're a patron.
That's a game changer.
That's a big
absolute
deal,
game
and that's
changer.
Patreon's big deal right now. That's why I couldn't leave.
Now, it'd be nice if we got stats on that, but that's a very inside baseball thing. Custom RSS feeds. It's huge. It's a way for you to tell your audience, and this is what I do every week. Hey, it's super easy. Literally on your phone right now, you can support us. You can copy a line of code. It'd be really nice if it were easier. And paste it into the podcatcher of your choice, because that is a huge thing. In podcasting specifically, people do not have a preferred way to do it. They have their own way to do it. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's it. There's although the iTunes directory is the end-all, be-all of what is successful and what isn't, in terms of listening, people listen on a million different apps, and they are very particular about exactly why they like or don't like those apps.
Well,
go ahead. Okay. The thing that I do is my show. I have ads on my show because I'm through Anchor, and Anchor gets me ads, which is fantastic. I don't have to do the legwork to go out and find an advertiser Anchor just brings it to me. But what I do is when I record my show, I put a break in for the ad, and then I upload it to Patreon, and that Patreon episode does not have the ad in it. So then I tell my listeners, by the way, if you want to get the show ad-free, so you don't have to listen to the ads, just costs you $1 a month. $1 a month, they'll get it. So I'm making money on having the ad on my show, and then for the people who don't want the ad, they throw $1 at me, and now they don't have to listen to the ad. So there's a lot of ways that you can make this advantageous for you.
Here's a Patreon tip. If you are doing a weekly show, never do a monthly Patreon. Do a weekly Patreon. Like, you will make a lot more money.
I know. I don't know. I might disagree with that only for this reason. I've seen that situation where somebody got that advice, and later on in life, they decided they wanted to move to a monthly model, and it completely screwed up. It screwed everything up for them.
I mean, sure. I'm
It's
sure
in the change.
Yeah.
It was in the change that it screws up. So let's say you're getting $1 an episode. That's $4 a month. When you change from weekly to monthly, you're getting $1 a month. It does not up the pledge. So that's where you have to educate your audience. And change it.
Don't do a monthly thing ever.
I do monthly, and it works fine though. I mean, you just set different expectations. I don't have a $1 tier.
I mean,
my lowest tier is $5.
So is your show weekly?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad. All I'm saying is you could be making more.
The way that I look at it is, you said you don't have a $1 tier. Well, there's going to be people in your audience who $5 is too much, for a month, and they're going to say, I can't afford that, but they can afford $1. Or maybe they can't, but maybe they can afford $1. And now you're opening yourself up to a lot more people to support you by having that lower price. And that's why another thing that I don't do on Patreon is I don't separate the people who pledge at $1 or $25 into different categories, because I just figure everybody gets the same reward, and you pledge at whatever you feel comfortable with. Does that mean I'm losing money? Probably. But I still feel like it's better for the community as a whole. And that's really what you got to do, is build a community.
I very much disagree with that. Okay. With all respect, and here's why. I did have a $1 tier.
Fight.
My $1 tier had 10 people on it. My $5 tier had 200 people on it.
Okay.
Right? My $10 tier had 200 people on it. If you're giving them the right motivation for supporting you, you don't need a $1 tier. And I believe you do want to differentiate your tiers in determining what the real value is. For me, $5 gets you access to every episode we've ever done. That's 150 episodes that are archived and every other weekly show, right? $10 is the thing that gets you the right to come on the show at some point. And 15, 25, 50, 100, etc. determines how often and frequently you get to come on the show. So that's my model, and it directly motivates people to give more constantly. If they're at 5, they want to be at 10, and if they're at 10, they want to be at 15.
But also, like, you have a library which is evergreen because you're trivia, right? Yeah. So it's like that.
That's
that
a big deal.
matters.
Good point.
Yeah.
I'm a news show.
Yeah, it seems like we're spending a lot of time talking about Patreon when there's certainly a lot of other topics relating to monetization with digital media. But one of the things that I wanted to say is Patreon is one option, but there's certainly, it depends on what kind of content you're producing. And obviously what the model is that you want to go to your listeners with. If you're pure podcasting, right, that would be just audio. I mean, some of these models with Patreon work, I think, a little bit better with the video experiences that are out there of trying to support those type of shows. But if you're a pure podcast, I mean, there's options to you that are different than this. And one of them is advertising, and platforms like the company I work for, Libsyn, does have a premium paid podcasting model that's built into the platform. So if you wanted to host your show with a platform like Libsyn, and some of the other companies have those options too, of creating a paid premium model for your podcast. Now you can do that without having to use a Patreon type of a model, and you basically kind of own that more than handing over your brand and your show over to another platform like Patreon. So like on our platform, you would be branded as your show offering those capabilities, not having to share the brand with like a Patreon. So it kind of depends on what you're trying to build with your show. Advertising is a terrific option for shows that have grown to a certain size and scale. There's companies that are selling advertising into podcasts. You can make tens of thousands of dollars. Now, obviously, as your show grows larger, and the same with Patreon or same with any of these platforms, the larger that you build your show, the more income you're going to make. And there is a threshold typically that you need to reach before you can really start making some good money. Even with Patreon, there's a lot of shows that are on Patreon that are not making very much money right now because they haven't built their audiences.
Now, to that end, early in the days, you would come up with member sites, right? Our good friend to the north has built software. You're using a whole different model, right, for raising this kind of income.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the one difference a little bit with DMG is we're a nonprofit, so we're not looking for massive amounts of money. I've definitely seen people doing a lot of these things in our community using resources that we have, but what we've done is actually, because it was kind of pre-Patreon when we actually started, we needed that ability to say, like, you're a member, you're not a member. And so luckily our executive director and co-founder built ticketing software at one point in her life. So we actually use that ticketing software to create these member tiers. So you can go on our website, you can find content that is members only. And that was the thing that we actually needed.
And that keeps it controlled to, say, my show, is I can take that software. Now, do I buy that software? How would somebody utilize that software?
You could, but currently we are not selling it. But you could, I could give you the name of Jenny, yeah.
Okay, so at this point, it's like you got to know somebody.
At this point, DMG, yeah.
But but that is another model to control your own way of doing things. I think WordPress has some of those plugins. There's different things like that.
But it comes with all these downsides where when you want to make a change, if you're paying, so I wouldn't recommend, if you were can I get Jenny's name to make this software for me? What happens when you want to change your model slightly, or you want to change something about your website, how this all works? You need to contact that same contractor, right? Versus with Patreon, with all these kind of built-in software, it's not rocket science. There's a certain amount of features. Look at the different features that you can get on different platforms.
That's a good warning.
Right.
I always my dad doesn't understand this. He thinks he thinks money is more important than time, and for me, time is more important than money.
Yeah.
And so that's why I go with these solutions that are already pre-built, because then I don't have to worry about it. And besides, I don't have the know-how. I don't have a Jenny.
But even if you have the know-how, I used to work as a full-time web developer. Did I write the code of my own website? No, absolutely not. I give somebody $10 a month for that shit. They host it. I can update it using some blogs and a CMS that they just do.
I think Bill made a really good point a minute ago, and I want to call back to it in case you guys missed it. When Rob pointed out that my content is evergreen, Bill pointed out that his show is a news show. You have to know what kind of show you're doing in terms of how you want to monetize it. Right. His news, sports, that kind of stuff, if it's not current, it's not useful for people. Nobody's going back and listening to old news shows from last year, the year before. Right. So he has to drive the action now, right now. Whereas for me, everything I do is evergreen. Somebody can come find us 10 years from now and start paying us because they love what we did. Right. Yeah. And people will go back and listen to the old stuff because it's just as good as the new stuff. So you have to know that about what you're doing with your show in order to set the right choices for different options you choose.
Right. Now we got questions. I know he had raised. You still got questions? Okay, he had raised his hand. We're right here and we're right here. All right, I'm coming this way. I'm throwing the box. Look out! There we go. Other side.
I live in Atlanta. This is going home with me. Thank you very much.
The foot hold it towards your face.
I actually have
there you go.
A forceful comment.
It's a microphone.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that's a microphone. There you go.
Look at my age. Give me a break. No. I want to say something about what Izzie said, but I want to make another comment first. I'm old. All right? I'm a terrorism expert. What radicalizes people doesn't change. So the comment is this: it's not time, it's not money, it's connection. You want to be able to trust the content and the content provider, and that is more imperative now than ever before,
Right.
which gets you a lot of money Izzie's way. The nonprofit sector and the university sector
Right.
is overflowing with money to help people get connection so they don't have mental health problems. Izzie, that's not just a Canadian phenomenon.
Oh no, that's
You're operating like a nonprofit, but you don't have to. The money's all over the place. So thank you for letting an old guy come. This is one cool place where people really do connect.
Yes.
And it only took me 3 years to figure that out. But thank you.
I'm starting every sentence with, I'm a terrorism expert.
We're
Never forget
Like-
that an X is a has-been and a spurts a drip under pressure.
Yeah.
I think
we need to change the definition of that word.
I
right?
really
I don't
want to
think
switch
that's such a good
seats with
idea.
you.
In which way do you mean it? Anti?
No,
or
I mean like whatever.
Terrorism.
All I know is that everyone paid attention the second he said that. It was like
Whoa.
ears up.
What's-
There's nothing like boring that comes
Right.
after.
What-
As
what's
a terrorism expert.
What's next, right?
I think about connection. So,
I just had one comment about you're kind of like yes, we could do it, not in the nonprofit realm, but I think when you're talking about connection and trust, our organization is specifically to support marginalized people creating interactive media. And so it is actually to boost that trust, where we make sure our business model supports the work that we want to do.
But all of this is different, and our terrorism expert is right.
Yeah.
Like it is all about connection.
Totally. It's- yeah, absolutely,
No
yeah.
matter what, do you care about your community? Do you know what your community wants out
Yeah.
of you? Do you serve it? For the trivia world, they want good trivia delivered on time, so they know what they are doing.
More
right?
than that, just like Dragon Con people, I have really smart people, I have nerdy people, I have geeky people, and they want a place where they can make friends with other people like them.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, so building off the connection that you guys were just talking about, what's your advice, and maybe like 2 of you can answer, like what's your advice for building a relationship with your audience?
Relationship.
Pick which two.
So I've done a lot with relationship building. I can tell you that I was terrified to start a Facebook group early on, right? I started my Facebook group in December of 2015. I had been doing the show for about 8 months, and I was scared I was going to be the only person there. I didn't want to create a place for people to go and have nobody show up. I held myself back until finally I got up the courage to do it. Within the first month, we had 100 people in there. Within the second month, we had 200. It grew and grew and grew. There's 2,800 people in there right now. It is my direct connection to my audience. My audience knows me personally. I know my audience personally. We have people in that group who become friends. We had somebody move from San Diego to Iowa to go be closer to the people they met in the group. We've had people get married.
Yeah.
We've had
Believe it.
these people. We have 6 dudes up and down the East Coast that get together like every other month to do games together because they're best friends now. That kind of connection is worth more than anything in the world. You can't put a price on friendship. What you have to do is create a place that's worth going to that allows them to coalesce around what you've built.
And in order to do that, like he uses Facebook, I use Discord. I'm sure that there's other people that use Slack. There's a lot of different tools out there. Whatever tool that you decide to use in order to build your community, one of the things that you need to do is you need to have people that you trust to moderate that, to make that community a welcoming place. Because if you don't, it's going to become the Wild West, and it's going to scare off people. And back to Mr. Terrorism over there. Sorry, sir.
Expert. He's not
Terrorism expert. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. Back to what he was saying. It's about building trust. You want to build the community. I know that this is a monetization panel, but in order to monetize, you have to have a community and an audience to do so. And I don't like to think, I don't want my audience to think that I'm trying to monetize them.
Right.
And that's why I don't, that's why I don't put anything behind a paywall. I put everything out for free, and then if they want to support, then they can. And that's just the way that I look at it.
I grew up in the South as a preacher's kid, so this is growing up. The analogy I understand in a context of what we're talking about monetization is kind of like a church. You build a place for people to come who are like-minded, who want to hear what you have to say, and you make it available if they want to put in to the plate, right? But it's that safe space. And what hinders people is like, why are you doing a podcast if you don't think people want to support you? I mean, I'm not saying monetize, but you're talking about you don't monetize your people. You don't sell that connection. You make the connection, and because of that, people support you. Exactly. Question over here.
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment really quick.
Oh, yeah.
On that
Sorry,
too.
Rob. Go ahead.
The big thing is being authentic and who you are, and connect with people at a personal level as much as you can. If you can get out and have meetups and go to where your audience is and meet them in person, you'll be blown away by the people that come up to you and think that they're your friend and you've never met them before. And I mean, it's such a powerful thing. But it's really about maintaining those relationships. When they write you, email, they message you, or they write a comment on your website or anything like that, or on Facebook, respond to them. Give affirmation that you appreciate them for being a part of your show and your community just on a regular basis. It takes time, it takes effort, but over time that creates a network effect. And more people, because what you want in any of these mediums is you want to spread word of mouth. That's the key to growing any of these shows, and that starts with trust and a bond. And people want to share friends to other friends that they like. So it's very fundamental.
Yes, I was wondering, is there any specific form of monetization that would be different when you're dealing with an audio drama from traditional podcast?
Interesting.
Yeah. You can sell audio dramas specifically as like albums or more like completed structures in a way that a news format might not lend itself to. Maybe a trivia thing you could sell like as a complete block, like just the ones about Aquaman or whatever. But for an audio drama, yeah. I mean, I would look at that as an album. Like I would release it as an album or something like that, where now you can monetize it on a whole different level and give your audience a win condition. What we did on Night Attack was we realized that first we just did an album and then realized that it charted on Billboard, which was rad because as it turns out, it's way easier than you think to chart on Billboard. Try it, everybody in this audience. I'm just saying, no one's buying records no more. You just go ahead while everyone's asleep. Get yourself something that you can, show off to your friends. But yeah, like just do a thing that it's all about form and function on the end for the end user. What do they want? Are they listening to radio? Listening to television? Are they listening to an album? Like think about what they want and then give it to them in the way that they're used to. Because the gulf between what the artist thinks and what the end user thinks is often miles, right? And you got to think of yourself as a content producer in the same way that Sony is a lot more than you think, because you're just sitting in your underwear talking into a mic, right? Like
also that life cycle of like the content that you produce, right? Like DMG, we have in-person workshops. We sell then like streaming tickets to that workshop. That's a different experience than say when we put that on like our Vimeo or on our websites for people to look at content that's already happened, right? And there's kind of different things you need to put in place for all of those. And I think that goes for any kind of media. Yeah,
and I think that there's the concept of windowing content too, which has been around television and movies and to some degree music for many years, is where you create a piece of content or series and then you put it out in various places. Maybe you put an Audible to begin with, and then maybe you it's longer form and Audible. Maybe you do a deal with them. And then after it's made its run on Audible, maybe you take it out, cut it up into shorter pieces, and put it out as a podcast, and run advertising against it in the shorter clips of segments. So there's lots of ways, I think, and there's growing ways. You know, you can make it a freemium model. You can offer one episode for free and then have the rest of it paid.
For something like an audio drama, I have a question for the audience. Raise your hand if you like watching bloopers. Yeah. When you're doing an audio drama, you got to get it right, and you're going to screw up a lot. Don't throw those recordings away. Hold on to them and give them to people who support through Patreon or whatever service that you end up using, because your super fans are going to love watching you screw up the same line over and over and over again.
Yeah. And you can do extra content. You can do backstories and stuff.
I want to build on that, because if you're ever talking about monetization or looking at monetization, you need to look at companies who have successfully made money and see what they've done. Look at the concept of a greatest hits album, right? How do you sell a greatest hits album? You add 2 tracks to something that people have already bought from you, and now they're going to go buy a greatest hits album, right? All they're selling you is 2 new tracks, and you paid $16.99 for it. Take something, a season, however you're packaging it, whether it's a record or whatever, package it up, add new things like bloopers or a couple of other things. That's how you sell DVDs too, right? Blu-rays, same thing.
VHS collections.
Add some things to your already existing content to make it worth buying, and even people who have already bought the first time will go back and buy it again so they can get the extras.
Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left, and there's somebody here who can add to the conversation. I texted him, I don't know if he knows, but we've got Roberto Blake here in the audience. Come here, sir. Woo! Roberto's been coming for the last couple of years, and it's been
on this,
awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So come on in and throw in your 2 cents, sir.
Oh, that was super not expected. So, first of all, can we clap it up for having a great panel?
Well, thank you. Thank you.
So I am from the world of like YouTube and entrepreneurship, but I worked like in corporate prior to that, and so I had a lot of marketing and advertising experience. YouTube and monetization can be good if you can actually make it and pull it off, and if you're advertiser friendly. But has anybody here heard of that not being so great lately? Anybody show of hands?
Yeah,
it's but here's the thing. It can be, and it just depends on what your niche is and what you're doing. Some people, they're getting 25 cents per 1,000 views. I know YouTubers with 1 million subscribers get millions of views. 1 million views getting like $150, and I know smaller people that are in a specific niche that on their views, on that same like million, would get $7,000. So it really just depends. And the irony is that like a lot of entertainment or edgy content, like that's how you get $200 on like 1 million views, and yet things that you might think don't have a huge audience or that you might think are super niche or very specific, interestingly, there's not a lot of people competing for those ad dollars. You also have a lot of very popular people in YouTube and Twitch that they're not putting anything behind a paywall, and I know everybody has to decide where their line in the sand and that stuff is, but I'm going to be the guy who tells you don't be a starving artist. I'm never going to advocate for there being any nobility in poverty, and I'm going to tell you that the biggest people in YouTube, some of them are afraid to start a Patreon. People with 1 million subscribers, I have it in my DMs, they're afraid to start Patreon because there's a stigma around monetizing your audience. You think Apple or Samsung worried about the fact that you're paying $1,000 for a smartphone that you don't need right now? Like Tyler Durden was right in many respects, not in his nihilism. Here's the thing: a lot of us, myself included, sometimes you're doing stuff you don't like. Well, I do what I love, so I don't think I count that part. But a lot of people are doing things they don't like to buy crap they don't need to, caveat, impress people they also don't care about. And so if you can do what you love, and if people want to support it, don't be afraid to directly monetize your audience, because they are going to give $30, $50, or $1,000 this month to a company that doesn't care about them. How about giving it to a creator that does? So just think about that. You can give people something they enjoy and care about, and like, isn't it better if you deliver real value and something they care about and something that you put your heart and soul into, that they're willing to put $5, $10, $15, $30, $50 behind, $100 behind, and know that it made a real difference for you versus a faceless organization that really couldn't give a crap if their product is killing them right now. Just to be very real about that. So do the right thing by people, figure out what your own sense of integrity is, but don't be afraid to monetize, and don't be afraid to do the thing that you like, and don't be afraid to find partners and great platforms. And if you don't have somebody that can do and handle the coding for you, like the membership sites, there's a lot of great things out there. There's Patreon, there's Subscribestar, or if you want to build a business like outside of your platform like I did, you can use things like Teachable or Kajabi or Thinkific's a great company from Canada. A lot of content creators use that for their stuff. You can figure this out, and don't do the stupid thing I did for 6 years. Don't go it alone for 6 years and do everything like yourself like a madman. I was the idiot who shot, produced, and edited 1,300 videos and did 2,000 live streams solo. And
that's a lot of work, people.
And right, and there's a reason that I have a therapist. So, right, so. Don't be afraid to reach out for help or to your friends or to find partners, or like if you're a super creative person and you don't get this business stuff, partner with somebody who does, and just hold if you get a partner and they're a bit of a shark, kind of like hold the moral high ground for them a little bit, but also get them to let you make things that are profitable or be smart and everything like that. Balance each other out. It's like, sometimes a Sith is a good friend to have.
Or just know your strengths.
Yeah.
Or
Slytherin. Straight up. So just play to your strengths, and if you suck at something, it's okay to suck. And if you don't have a year to grind it out and you're not getting any better, just get somebody who's already good at it and just balance each other out and support each other. This is a great community. You probably got somebody sitting right next to you that could really help you out. So just talk to them and just be connected like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, community is not just out there, it's in here, it's with each other. So we're down to our last 5 minutes, and we're going to go with...
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Izzie,
Yeah.
where can they find you and what you do in the world?
So you can find me on Twitter mostly at iColpitts. You can find DMG at dmg.to, and that has all of our social information and any events that are going on.
Roberta?
You can find me at Roberto Blake everywhere in social media, and on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Roberto Blake 2, 1,300 videos because I'm a crazy person.
Bill?
You can find me at Run Jump Stomp on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And if you're looking for my podcast, it would be Nintendo Switchcraft or StadiaCast, wherever you download your shows.
Jonathan?
Just one last piece of advice before I give you my handles. Be really intentional about how you're messaging, asking for money the first time, the second time, and practice it. I went the route, you mentioned church, I went the route of if you're a guest, you don't have to give anything, right? If you're just now listening for the first few
you're
months,
a first time
don't
visitor.
give anything. It's my gift to you, right?
Right.
If you want to support the show, this is how you can do it. You're never asking for money. You're giving them the opportunity to support the show, and so practice that phrasing. You can find my game shows at trivialwarfare.com. They're all podcasts. We're at Trivial Warfare damn near everywhere. I hope you come join us. We have a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I can be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and that's with 2 E's. And you can also find the new media show that I do with Todd Cochran from Blueberry. I've been doing it for about 9 years now at newmediashow.com. And that's actually a live show that's simulcasted. Actually, at the end of the month, we're going to get back to simulcasting to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter and all the live play platforms. So you'll be able to watch it every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And you can also reach me on my email, robg@lipson.com, if you have any questions about podcasting.
Awesome. Justin?
Hi, I'm Justin. You can find me at the bar in 5 minutes. Make good stuff.
And I am Charles McFall, giantsizesteamup.com. And one last piece I wanted to add in here is if somebody's telling you they want to give you money, do it. We talked about splitting and diversifying. And the previous panel, my partner was up here, and we were doing Twitch for our game show. Twitch. People were subbing. And our main people who were supporting us with subs were like, where's your Patreon? Where's your And it took us, well, it actually took till Patreon rolled out the new model where you didn't have to do rewards. You could just have a hey, we're supporting you level. And that's when we launched it. And immediately our biggest Twitch supporters put money in per month for that as well. So go where people want to be, do what they want to do. I want to say thanks to our sponsors, Blueberry and Lipson. Both of these amazing hosts do ad inserts. They help you out. They grow the community. And our community is tiny.cc digital media Discord. This is digital media track. We're already getting a whole lot of new members. The general room is open to everybody. You can meet, you can talk. And as we build the con for next year, that's where you can possibly get on some panels, let people know who you are and what you do. One more thing. Bill, go.
I know that you said earlier that you were having trouble keeping up with the typing. This whole thing was streamed at DC Digital Media on Twitch, so
Yes.
you can go back and watch it afterwards.
And it'll be on the YouTube as well. Well, after the con's over, everything will move over. But thank you, Bill. All right, thanks for coming out. Give everybody here a round of applause. And we'll see you in the next panel.
Oh, if anybody has any questions about YouTube, I'll be hanging out right outside for a minute.
Yeah, right outside, yes.